Back in 2020, I was getting injured roughly every 8 to 10 weeks. I was tired, lacking in confidence, and I was struggling to find a way to feel good, both in my workouts and to perform well. And now I'm running personal bests that had escaped me for 3, 4, 5+ years and feeling pretty good while doing so. I'm energized, excited by my training, and I'm backing myself all the way to the Olympics in 2028 and beyond. So, what changed? I'll show you. I cannot stress enough that this is the biggest performance enhancer and recovery tool that you literally have at your fingertips. And it's mostly legal too. And if you can implement just a few of these things into your training week and your lifestyle, you can reap the performance rewards too. And you might just enjoy things a little bit more in the process. Now, this is not just another, here's a bunch of useless tips that you've all heard before video. These are 7 actual changes that I made to my training and my lifestyle to go from perpetually injured runner to running personal bests across the board and loving my running more than I ever have done before. Now, I am currently walking through the rainy streets of Manchester, trying to make my way to my haircut whilst giving you this information. But seriously, there is so much education and information packed into this video, and I promise you all of it is stuff that you can actually apply and you can use. Yes, I'm an elite runner. Yes, I go to altitude 3 or 4 times a year, but that's an extra layer that goes on top of, not before these 7 things. These things are all fundamentals that you can all do and should all do, but maybe they haven't been explained in a way that is actually useful before. Or maybe you've never heard them before even at all. And by the way, guys, we have a lofty goal of hitting 100,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel this year. Now that's a big goal. Some may say an impossible goal, but I say, not with your help, it's not. Listen, subscribing is a free, really easy way to support the channel, and I would love you long time if you hit that subscribe button and share the love.
Hey, thanks. He's like your #1 fan. This is BTS right now. Nice to see you.
That was funny. Someone just shouted love the grind at me. This first one is super simple, and it is having a smart, sensible, consistent structure to your week. For me, that literally means having my days of the week laid out so that it fits in with my lifestyle and so that I'm going to be able to perform at my best. What does that look like? So for the last 2 years, it's pretty much looked exactly the same. My workouts are on Tuesday and Friday, and my long runs are on Sunday. Sometimes those long runs are easy, sometimes they're steady and with a bit of a pickup. The remainder is easy run days. There's a rest day thrown in every 2 to 4 weeks, usually on a Monday or on a Saturday, replacing one of those easy days. And I do my gym work on Wednesdays and Saturdays, the day after those workouts, so that I'm not sore going into the workouts, we're not compromising the quality, and I'm focusing on those sessions being as good as possible, but I'm not missing out any of the little stuff. And for me, this weekly structure works. It means that I feel good in the workouts, I've got plenty of easy running to recover and build that aerobic engine, and the most important thing is that I can be consistent with it. I can pretty much look at any week. Let's pick the middle of November next year. My schedule is pretty much going to look like what it does now, and I know with full confidence that it is sustainable and it's allowing me to build those blocks of consistency, and that is the most important thing for improving your performance over time, staying consistent. So plan your week around similar principles. Be realistic with yourself. What is achievable? What is too much? What is cramming your workouts and long runs into half the week and your easy runs into the other half? That's not going to work. It's not going to make you feel good, and you're going to tire out over time, and it's not sustainable. Find that routine, lock in, and be as consistent with it as possible. Well, I need to go and get my hair cut. So whilst I do that, Phily from the future is going to give you an early bonus 8th tip. Phily, take it away. Thanks, Phily. And we'll keep an eye on how that haircut is progressing whilst I dispense to you, quite frankly, this genius extra piece of advice. And that is cutting down on, or completely cutting out, alcohol. I had my first alcoholic drink since June 2023, last week on my birthday. I had a glass of red wine with dinner. It was delicious, no problemo, no regrets. But I do drink very rarely. And that's what I found works for me, and it really aids my running performance and my training by being almost teetotal. Now, the night after drinking that glass of wine, I woke up the next day and looked at my data because I track my heart rate, my HRV, my sleep, all that good stuff overnight. My lowest resting heart rate overnight was 5 beats higher than it usually is on average. Okay, it was 5 beats higher. That's not much. Well, yeah, it is, because it was 43 when it's usually 38, which is over 10%. It's a percent, and I'm not here to work out the math because I'm not that good at maths, but it's a lot. And that is a mad metric to show you how alcohol can impact your recovery and your sleep performance, and that's just one glass of wine. That impaired recovery capability is then going to impact your training cycle. If you do that before a race or in a key training cycle, or when you're feeling run down already, it's going to be really damaging. So that's why for me personally, I tend not to drink alcohol because it's just really not worth it. But it doesn't mean I have to miss out on great tasting drinks and the fun that having an alcoholic beverage with friends can bring. And if you're someone that likes beer like we do, I have an incredible solution for you. Days Brewing are the sponsor of today's video, and they're the Scottish-born beer company that are making waves for being the beer for doing. It's all the great taste of a regular beer, but without the alcohol and the negative side effects. But don't just take it from me, take it from Saturday Kitchen Live.
I've got you Days Pale Ale, which is 0%.
I've had this before.
Have you? Are you a fan?
I am, actually.
I'm so pleased to hear it. Get the water from the Lammermuir Hills. They're up in Scotland.
To me, that tastes exactly like beer.
It's beer that's never had alcohol in it, so it doesn't have to be removed. It's genius. They make a banging lager and a delightful pale ale, which is my favourite. I genuinely have to hide these from Daniel. And you can grab 20% off across their website, daysbrewing.com, using my code Phily20, which is on screen now. Click the link at the top of the description to go and check them out. And hey, if you do your shopping in Tesco, Sainsbury's or Waitrose over here in the UK, you can even pick them up when you're doing your groceries too. Thanks to Days for being the perfect sponsor for this video. And for the extra advice. Back to you, Philly, for that next piece of golden advice, and may I say, that haircut is looking spectacular. Ah, thank you, Philly from the future. I'm digging my haircut too. Now, where was I? Ah yes, those things I changed to make me a much better, faster, more consistent, less injured runner. This next one is gonna sound like something you've heard before, but hear me out. My easy runs now, compared to back in 2020, are so much slower. I have changed not only the pace of my easy runs, but the way I think about these easy runs. What does that mean? It means that the runs in between my workouts, in between the long run and the session days, are genuinely easy, okay? E-A-Z-Y. E-A-S-Y, easy. Easy, people. Not steady, not a little bit hard, not I can't hold a conversation. They are easy! And that pace that feels easy is gonna look different day to day, okay? Because you're gonna feel different going into the run. You might have had less sleep. You might have had a really hard session the day before. You might have had a not too hard session the day before. You might have had a heavy gym day, making your legs a little bit sore, and it's gonna be a little bit slower to feel easy. So these days, my easy runs are typically the same pace as my warm-ups for sessions. My cool downs and my shakeouts on a workout day, the little run I go for in the evening, those are a little bit slower, but typically across the board, easy is easy. Back in 2020 and earlier, well, actually, earlier I was even worse, but 4+ years ago, I would just go for a run and not really think about what is the purpose of this run and am I listening to my body? Why did I run my longest ever run back then in 2020 at this quite fast pace? Why? I genuinely don't know. But it certainly wasn't done with intention. And it appears that I genuinely thought that 6:30 to 6:40 minute miling was my easy pace. And I also somehow thought that running 5 to 10 seconds per mile slower than that was what the doctor ordered on a day that I was feeling tired. And was left wondering, why can't I shake these dead legs? Oh, Philly. You are a fool. Oh, how I've learned and grown. These days, my philosophy as an athlete and a coach is that your easy runs should feel easy. And my easy runs shape up far slower than they're predicted to when you use these calculators that you put in your race performances and it works backwards to give you your easy paces. But that's what feels easy to me. And these days, they are around 45 seconds to a minute per mile slower than they were 4 years ago. And I'm running faster times, and I am a more consistent, less injured, happier runner. Wait a minute. Does that mean that slowing down on your easy days if you're running too fast can actually make you a better athlete? Do I pay attention to heart rate? Yes, I make note of it and I keep an eye on it, but it's not what dictates my pace on my easy days. Because I think what's more important is it feeling like that familiar easy pace. And tuning into these feelings is important across the board. Knowing what easy feels like. Knowing what threshold finishing a session at 7 out of 10 feels like. Knowing what 10K race pace feels like. Because then you're not going to rely on the data from your watch. You can actually tune into what your body's doing. Is there such a thing as running too slow on your easy days? Yes and no. Until your running form becomes compromised because you're just dragging your body along and the impact is actually worse because your form's just not really resembling what you normally look like when you're running because you're going so slowly, that's when it's too slow. But 99% of people watching this will be verging on the end of too fast rather than too slow. For me, I can't really go much slower than 8:45-minute miling without my form starting to decline. But my marathon pace is around 5:40-minute miling. So that's the window, and I roughly sit at sort of 7:30 to 8-minute miling on my super easy recovery days. Thank you, Daniel, for your continued conversion into minutes per kilometer. We appreciate you. So if you're one of those people that are hamming your easy days, you're not recovering in between sessions, and heaven forbid you're getting anywhere close to your 5K, 10K PBs on an easy run, check yourself. You are holding yourself back without knowing it. And speaking of easy runs, should we go for one? It feels like the time. Let's go. Sleep. Now, I know this sounds like an easy, obvious win, but it is a continuous battle for most of us. But keeping it front and center will 100% pay off. I cannot stress enough that this is the biggest performance enhancer and recovery tool that you literally have at your fingertips. And it's mostly legal too. I say mostly legal because if you sleep so much that you're not showing up for work or not waking up to get your kids to school or falling asleep at the wheel, don't do that, then things might get a little sticky. But in all seriousness, this one has to be priority number one on this list, on any list. Because the science is pretty clear. Sleep is directly proportional to enhanced performance. And that's because when you're sleeping, your body is repairing the muscle damage that you picked up in a very natural way from training, and it's helping you build back stronger and absorb those adaptations to the training you've been doing. Which means if you skimp on the sleep, less of that happens, which sucks for your performance. And if you really skimp on the sleep, you get injured. Unfortunately, there's no dancing around it, and we all know that is the worst possible scenario, because not only can you no longer run and do that training that you so enjoy, but that injury is also going to set you back weeks, maybe even months. Especially if you're continuing to not get enough sleep, that injury is going to take longer to repair, and then you're looking at having to build all of that fitness back up again, and it taking a lot longer until you're even thinking about enhancing your performance because you're just trying to get back running. Now, this isn't meant to scare you, but if it does, that's probably a good thing because you probably need to top up on your sleep. And I started taking my sleep more seriously, I'd say a couple of years ago. Really prioritizing getting as much sleep as possible, going to bed earlier and not letting the weekends deviate. It's not rocket science, but you do have to pull yourself up on it regularly if you want to be consistent. And I've been tracking my sleep on my watch and on my ring, and what I've seen is that categorically, better sleep consistently across the board over time leads to better performances. In training, that then leads to better performances in races. I feel better during the training. I'm a nicer person to be around. Sleep honestly seeps into everything, but for performance, it's a non-negotiable. The more consistent you are with it, the more consistent you'll be in your training, period.
We addicted to fast cars, bad bras, late nights, last calls, alcohol, bad. Just scrolling through the phone log, hit 'em up, all my pick 'em up. We bout to have a time tonight. Sure you keep that burner tuck, cause dick like you creep low. Say motherfuck the PO and the judge. But if they come with us, just know it's love. I'm saying just because. Yeah. Cause we been coming from welfare, Medi-Cal, healthcare, living in the hood is hell here, hell yeah.
So, I'm in Berlin now. I may or may not be racing a half marathon tomorrow. So that'll be the next video that comes out after this one. So you really should hit subscribe if you want to find out how I get on. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. It's actually not all I'm going to say, because I have another important piece of advice for you. One of the biggest changes I've made as an athlete since 2020, and I suppose I've been consistent with it now for almost 2 years, which feels amazing to say, strength and conditioning. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a pretty strong lady. Despite the size of my biceps, I'm not actually doing this for aesthetics. I've known for a long time as an athlete how important doing your strength and conditioning work is. Lifting in the gym to become stronger and putting in key exercises that prevent you from getting injury, whether that's to improve your running form or to focus on sort of high risk areas for you, where you're weak, so where you need to focus on. Does that mean that I always did my strength and conditioning from the minute that I knew that that was important? No, I didn't. Why? Because when you're busy and you don't have time, I do feel like we all have time because it's so important. You kind of need to make time. It is the first thing that goes from your week though. When you're busy, tired, stressed, have loads of work on your plate, lots of other things going on. As much as you endeavor to go to the gym, sometimes it doesn't happen. But guys, since I've had regular strength and conditioning and gym programming in my schedule, I've not been injured. That's me knocking on some wood, just in case anyone can hear me and decides that now it's my time to be due an injury, but it works. Funnily enough, preventing injury prevents injury. What? And this can be super simple. You don't need to overcomplicate it. It's doing pretty essential compound lifts, single leg exercises. Most of this you can access from good old Google. Looking up running specific strength and conditioning, adding it into your program once, twice a week, and making sure that you have some mobility work in there as well, which I tend to do in front of my gym program. I have a video on that, which you can watch up here if you are on your desktop, but not if you're watching me on a television. And really my advice here is make time. Make it a habit, make it part of your schedule, make it happen. If it means that you literally only have time for a 12 or a 15K run on a Wednesday, shorten that run by 10 to 15 minutes and get 10 to 15 minutes of strength work in, because it's that important that you should run less if the only time you have to do it is the time that you have already carved out for running. Strong runners are fast runners, and strong runners don't get injured as often. If you hate doing it, trick yourself. Find a friend. Give yourself a treat afterwards. Tell yourself you can't do the thing that you love doing till you've done your strength and conditioning. Hey, maybe it's your long run. If your long run's your favorite thing of the week, not allowed to do it if you haven't done your S&C. It's just an idea. I know it sounds cruel, but I have your best interests at heart. Now, this next one is one that I have gradually learned over time, and I think it's something that beginner athletes and amateur athletes continue to struggle with. Sometimes I'm guilty of it, but I'm so much better these days, and that is not ripping every workout. Knowing the place for control and knowing when those days are where it's meant to be a 7 or 8 out of 10 and you finish feeling like you could have done a little bit more. I'm talking about those strict marathon pace workouts when you're doing threshold work, tempo sessions. You're running in those zones for a reason. Of course you can go faster because you're not running at 5K pace and you're not sprinting, but the training effect of those workouts is running in that specific zone at that specific pace for a length of time, depending on how the session is laid out. And if you go to the well every session and rip all of them, you might not be getting the right training effect. You might not be focusing in the right places. Of course, there's a place for those all-out laying on the floor at the end of the workout sessions, but it's not every single one. And the value in doing this properly isn't just learning how to pace yourself, which you need to do for these longer races, but it's also being able to recover effectively between those sessions and being ready to come back for a harder one. The other massive thing that has changed for me over the last few years is changing the way I think about my fueling. Specifically, actually fueling my body properly with enough fuel, good fuel, the right fuel, a good balance. thinking about my nutrition a little bit differently and making sure that 9 times out of 10, I'm making good decisions. Staying hydrated, getting enough carbs in, pre-workout, during workout, post-workout. And I had a mindset shift about how I think about my fueling and my nutrition, in that my body is the machine. You gotta put fuel into the machine to get what you want out of it, rather than just trying to be the smallest version of yourself, which isn't necessarily always the strongest and most resilient version. So I've come from a place where years ago I had an eating disorder. I really struggled with my body image and kind of counting and calculating everything that went in, and just wasn't in a healthy place with what I ate. Fast forward to now, fueling my body and making sure that I'm making good choices is such a priority, because it makes me feel so much better, so much stronger on my runs, after my runs. I'm recovering better and I'm ready for the next training session. So let me give you a couple of specific examples of what I do now that I maybe wasn't so good at a few years ago. So pre-run, the night before a long run, the morning of, same goes for a big race like a half marathon or a marathon. The day before, the breakfast, I'm making sure that I have a higher proportion of carbohydrates in my meal, not necessarily eating more, but more of my plate or bowl is carbohydrates than it usually would be, because that's the fuel that's king over the long distance events. That's what's been proven in the science, and that's the advice I've been given by my physiologist, my nutritionist. And you really notice a difference compared to when you don't have the carbohydrates in the system. During the long run, during the marathon, I've honed my fueling strategy. I've learned what works for me. It is so individual. So this is something you have to practice. For some people, having really thick, gloopy, high carb gels is gonna be exactly what they need. For other people, they might have to focus on having carbohydrate drinks or flavored gels, or even some of those chewy gummy things that you have. And it's gonna be different in terms of the frequency that people can handle, what their stomach takes on. It's trial and error, and you have to train that in the same way as you do your workouts and you're training your legs and your cardiovascular system. And then post-workout, post-run, I always make sure I have something on me to refuel within that first 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes you will have worked yourself so hard that if you don't have a gel or a shake or a banana before you start your cool down, or if you've got a half an hour drive home, you're gonna feel pretty crappy afterwards. And if you can get some fuel in before your next meal, it really, really helps to kickstart that recovery process. And then within the first hour after you've finished, ideally getting your first meal in, making sure that you're rehydrating, and just kind of always being conscious of that fueling puzzle piece, because it is so important. And if you don't put effort in this area, you're really selling yourself short. And this last one is hopefully gonna make you feel not so overwhelmed by all the things you need to be doing and all the 1% you need to be collecting to be better every day in improving your performance. Because sometimes it can feel like you need to do a lot of things, and that can be a lot. And I really wish someone had told me this before many a Sunday evening, when I realized that my week hadn't been perfect, and I went into Monday with a list of things that I was gonna change, do differently, level up on, and going all guns blazing into it, because that's not really how you can implement long-term sustainable change into your routine. So whilst I hope you've taken in everything that I've said and you realize and value the importance of all of these things, don't overdo them. That goes for any of the 1% in your routine. Getting your mobility in the evening, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of foam rolling, not a lot all of a sudden. Because what I really don't want to do with this video and this advice is to encourage you to let any one part of your running consume you. Find that balance for you where it's fun, you're taking it seriously, you're doing your best in all of these areas, the structure, the hard work, the recovery, the races, but overdoing or overthinking any of those things or any of these areas can be a real detriment to, and it then becomes counterintuitive. And I'm going to use a great quote that I heard Savannah Sachdev use on Instagram: get out of your head and into your body, into your legs, into your running, and go and do the thing. Don't overthink it. A lot of people can get so caught up with wanting to be better, to do things better, that they end up micro-analyzing things. And that actually then stops them from doing the behaving better and the improving in performance and doing all of the things I've just spoken about. So I don't want you to become paralyzed by that overwhelm, because it can easily happen. And I'm gonna ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, learned one new thing, or found any of the advice useful, hit that like button because it lets YouTube know that you enjoyed this video, and hopefully that means it'll send it out to other people that need to see it. And we're not about gatekeeping information here, we're about sharing the love. Now go for that run. Love the grind.